So the recording is started. Welcome to our X OpenSLO community meeting. We're not keeping track of the numbers, but I think this is our third meeting this year. We've had one in February and one in July. So welcome everyone. I think as usual, we can give like a short introduction of each one of us. Just, one word about you, your name. With some of you here, I already met on our last meetings, but we have some new faces. So let's maybe start with Philip.
Hi, I'm Philip. I'm software engineer currently at WP Engine. It's a company that's not related to SLOs at all, but we are using SLOs internally.
Controversial employer right now.
yeah, but actually, this is this famous company that have drama about WordPress currently. But I cannot speak about it too much because of the legal reasons. I'm trying to add some value to OpenSLO whenever I can. Not a lot, but I will try to do better in future. Hi all.
Yeah, I don't know what the order is, but I'm not here for the first time either. I am Robin. I do site reliability engineering /DevOps /infrastructure /something, and I work on OSCO, which is a Kubernetes operator that basically helps you set and alert on top of your SLOs. I guess it's kind of working, kind of not, but I'm here in the community to help OpenSLO be more compliant to the Kubernetes specification, I guess, because historically that's not been the case.
Cool. Maybe Alex now.
Yeah, I think this is my first time. Did I miss the last? Okay, yeah. So I'm a senior staff engineer at Volvo Cars, and I have a relatively large organization, 100+ teams, and I've been working with them to implement SLO. So one of the side effects of that was a little project I made, a service level calculator, and while trying to save the state of that application, I thought, well, maybe we can use something standard already existing. And that's how I come across OpenSLO. So some of the issues that I've opened are the real questions that I have while writing that app. Also, that app can actually be used for loading YAML files, editing them, and saving them. So this is actually one thing I wanted to bring in the meeting if there is time, that we could potentially have like a visual editor for OpenSLO specification. But yeah, I'm here to learn, so this is my first time, so I will do mostly listening.
Cool. I'll link your the calculator as a reference in the comments. So maybe Jose now?
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
perfect.
I'm Jose. I'm a staff engineer at empathy.co. We build search engines for big companies at the commerce level. And long time ago, I was trying to find new solutions regarding SLOs and things like that. I found the project. I thought that it was really interesting, so I'm trying to participate and following it closer than before. So here I am to help with what you need.
Great, thanks. Aaron?
Yes, so I'm Aaron. I work at Cloudflare on the SLO team. I'm just building out SLO tools essentially, and again using OpenSLO to make sure all the teams are compliant and building graphs and such.
Right. And Bartek?
Yeah, I would love to. I would love to know later on how adopted OpenSLO is at Cloudflare. Maybe an interesting one-to-one discussion over chat doesn't belong here at all.
Yeah.
I'm Bartek. I'm a software engineer at Noble9, and I'm mostly observing what's happening here, still learning about OpenSLO.
Right. And I'm Mateusz. I'm the current core maintainer of the OpenSLO project, working at Noble9 as well. And yeah, it's nice to see some new faces. And I'm gonna share my screen now. Philip, please don't write to me, because those
sorry.
you'll be able to see those secret messages popping up. I haven't muted my Slack, so please don't write anything ugly there. Okay, so we have this little doc prepared for every meeting that we've had in the past, so we also have some history here. For today's meeting, I've listed some topics in the agenda. We don't have to go through them in any particular order, but we can already cross out the recording. And maybe we can give like a short summary of the action items from the last meeting. So what have we actually managed to achieve in terms of the project's development? We've been talking about alert conditions and lifting the restriction for multiple alert conditions. We decided that the default logic would be to have an and between those conditions. And Simon did follow up with a PR. I think this is this one. Unfortunately, Simon couldn't make it here today, but we've had some discussions asynchronously here on this PR. Yeah, it's here for you to read. Maybe after the meeting. I don't know if any of you have any thoughts around that you would like to share right now.
Maybe one information is that I reached out to Simon because we also had some ideas. Yeah, that's me there, the green one. And Simon said that he doesn't have much time now to deal with this now, but he will reach out if he needs some help. So I guess it's on standby.
Okay, fair enough.
In the meantime, I still think that I think we said that we're not going to allow multiple alert conditions in the V1. That's still kind of an interesting decision, but I don't know.
Yes. So to me, because the current state of the spec states that you can only have one alert condition, or rather, you can only have one. Sorry, that's not here. That's alert policy, right? So you can only have one condition in your alert policy. And we've had some discussion around that, around lifting this requirement to allow any number of alert conditions. And I think I'm in the minority here, saying that this shouldn't be done to V1, as this is kind of a breaking change. Because from my perspective, if there is an implementation of OpenSLO and we lift this restriction, we're expecting the implementations to follow this logic. So the implementation that used to be compliant will no longer be compliant, because if someone supplies multiple alert conditions and the implementation doesn't support it in V1, the user will get an error, right, where the error was not expected. Although with the current scope and state of the OpenSLO and the implementations being as they are, maybe it's not that big of a change, and maybe we can allow that in V1. I'm kind of, you know, my stance here, but both Philip and Robin were opting for allowing it. So I don't know if maybe you want to voice your opinions here about that right now.
I mean, I think maybe my opinion here changed a little bit to, like, do we know of any implementations? Do we actually know of any implementations that would benefit from the change in V1? And if not, then let's leave it. If yes, then I guess it should be some considerable implementation, I guess, or someone who really who would be broken by this. I don't know. That's just my thought.
I mean, my opinion was that even if it breaks anything, probably it's not that big of a deal. Probably. Well, and Robin is kind of right. If it does not benefit anyone, I won't fight for it. Like, we can just leave it as it is, as I would rather in future to move to just V2 alpha V. How was it called? Like the newest version we have in enchantments.
Yeah.
Then just fight over the V1.
Same. Yeah. Let's leave it.
Okay. So moving on, we've had the we discussed our policy that it may contain additional donor-specific fields similar to data sources. I think this has already made its way into the enhancements, right? Let's review that quickly. So for those unaware, right now, the way we design the next version of the OpenSLO is we have the changes written down textually in the file with the name of the version of the next version, and under the folder enhancements in the main OpenSLO repository. And here we're just writing down the changes that we want to bring in the next version, the next major version. So that's in the end, it's gonna be V2, right? I don't remember who discussed that topic, who brought that topic up. I don't know if I know if you remember that. And I don't really see those changes. Yeah, don't see them here. If we don't remember, that's okay. Let's just move on.
I don't really remember talking about this topic. But
me neither.
Maybe we just maybe we just skipped it.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe it was copied. No, I don't think so. Well,
I think actually, sorry, I was muted the whole time.
Okay.
So yeah, it was us probably with Patrick. The problem from our point of view, I don't know why it's called like that, was that the labels don't confirm at all to the Kubernetes spec. So they now allow arbitrary lists and maps to be, because standardly in Kubernetes and annotations and labels are just key values of strings, and this breaks the specific, like if we want to confirm to OpenSLO and OpenSLO, then OpenSLO cannot confirm to Kubernetes. That's kind of the issue.
Yeah, sorry, I raised the hand by accident. I think this is actually the topic that was discussed already, and you're right. You're right. Probably we should move to key values for labels and annotations, and this is the enchantment proposed in V2 Alpha 1.
Yeah, it's actually written there in the top under the general schema, adhere to metadata labels, metadata annotation Kubernetes standards.
Yeah.
It's just not represented in anywhere basically just yet. So yeah.
Great. So that was done as well. Yeah, that's something we will talk today, right? This is one of the proposals that Alex brought. So I think it's great that we can meet face to face now and talk about it. I'm just gonna add one more thing to these action items to maybe give like a short summary of what happened in the OpenSLO project during the last couple of months. So one of the big things that that we did was starting the work on the OpenSLO Go SDK. We some time ago, I think it was already like almost a year ago, we decided that after long discussions and considerations, we decided that we are gonna make the OpenSLO Go SDK the one source of truth when it comes to defining the OpenSLO spec. And we've managed to finally get this project going. If you want to get some more details on the current state of works, and if any of you want to, or anyone watching this video wants to contribute to this project, to this specific project, there's a GitHub project created for that. It should be publicly visible, available. Maybe you won't have the permissions to assign yourself, but just feel free to reach out to any of us. And yeah, it's going fairly well, I would say. We already have the SDK present in the project. It is not yet released officially. It can be used in your projects by referencing the commit hash from main in your Go modules, but it's not an official version yet. There will be breaking changes for sure before we release the official version. But we already have all the objects for all the versions defined, and we already started writing validation rules for them. I did some bootstrap on the V1 version for the validation rules, and Philip is currently working, hopefully finishing work on the V2 Alpha, right, Philip?
Yeah, I wanted to open the PR before the meeting, but I couldn't do it.
So that's not a problem. And Robin is working on creating an integration with the Kubernetes custom resource definitions, so that the OpenSLO can be a CRD in the Kubernetes ecosystem. Yeah, so having that out of the way, we can move on to discussing the current issues. And I think we'll start with one of your issues, Alex. I'll give you the freedom to choose which one is closest to your heart.
Yeah, if you could talk about the start of the week, if you could please open that issue, because there's some more information there I can talk about.
Okay.
Basically, as you can see in this map, different parts of the world start the week on different days, right? And traditionally, when we start a project, we usually go by what's closer to us. You know, if I'm starting in Europe, where I go with the European standard and so on and so forth. But this is basically about allowing the users to start the week on what makes sense to their locale or their regional setting. And the reason it's important is because there's two types of SLIs. There is time-based and event-based. The ones that are there is two types of SLO, window or compliance period. They are rolling or calendar bound, right? So for example, you say, I'm always looking into the last 30 days, or you say, I'm always looking into the current month or the last month, so if they decide to go with the weekly setup there, so the window is 1 week or 2 weeks, or any number of weeks. 4 weeks is also very common for systems that have a weekly seasonality in their load. 28 days is pretty common. So this is about that very niche use case. It's not really a showstopper if you don't decide here, but I'm just curious, how do you guys solve this? Because this is one of the problems that I have to solve in service level calculator. I'm rewriting some parts of it to allow this level of granular settings, and it's a problem that I have there. And since I'm mainly using OpenSLO for file storage, I thought maybe if you have an answer for that, then I have an answer as well. And just to close, my answer currently to this problem is that I'm using the JavaScript definitions, because the project that I'm working in is written in JavaScript. And there, I believe if you scroll down a little bit, it says like, I think 0 is Sunday, if I remember. Did I put a reference there? Or maybe I just put the, 0 is Sunday, and so on and so forth. But I mean, this is just how it works in JavaScript. And we all know that JavaScript is a very quirky language, so I feel bad for kind of proposing that, but this is one way. Then down in the first comment, I think someone mentioned that there is actually a standard we can use. And I looked into that, and I am convinced that this looks nice for the use case.
This is something that I was initially thinking as well. Like, if we provide the calendar, right, then, well, we don't really need to have the explicit information about the start of let's say the week, right? Because we already have the start time. So if we align the start time as we wish, let's say for Sunday, right, and then we say 1 week, then we wouldn't have that problem, right? But if we don't have calendar and we just define duration and just rolling, for example, then we get into trouble, right? And that's how the current spec allows it only, right? So either you define duration and is rolling to true, or you can define all three of these, but not for the rolling window, right? So just to rephrase that, to my understanding, right, this is that the issue is primarily, if not only, about the rolling window as it stands in the current spec. Someone raised, sorry.
Yeah, I believe it's the opposite. It's the calendar bound for when the duration is specified in weeks. So they would say 1W, 2W, 4W, for 1, 2, or 4 weeks. And the solution that you suggested, it works. It might not be very intuitive, because you have to look into that day. In this example that you have on the right side of the screen, you have to look at what day was 21st of January 2020, and then you know which day of the week it was. So at least we have one solution. It's not like there is no solution. It's just that I didn't find it very elegant compared to just being very explicit. Then you don't need to look up the calendar and see what day it was. You can see it in the config that, okay, it's starting from Sunday, for example.
Yes.
But then you would argue that you need that lookup table, because what is 0? Oh, 0 is Sunday. Then I have to look it up somewhere anyway.
Yeah, but with rolling, you cannot even do that, right? Like with rolling, you're doomed. You cannot define that start of the day of the week, for example, right?
No, you wouldn't need it. because it's always looking to past, I don't know, 7 days.
Yeah, but the only thing that
Yeah,
I'm
fair
worried,
enough.
I'm a bit worried about the implementation requirements for the applications that want to support this. Like generally, it feels really easy for me to, if even the time zone and the start time are both defined in the ISO specification 8601, then everyone and everything knows how to parse this correctly, right? But the W's and like how then the application, if they actually still want to underneath that want to work with specific with the standard, then they have to kind of like, you know, figure it out. They have to actually implement that, and it doesn't sound like really trivial, at least for the people like me who didn't study computer science. So yeah.
No, it's not trivial.
But it's really it would feel good, yeah, for the users for sure. I can see it.
Yeah, it depends on how the config is also consumed. So my assumption was that I wanted to kind of, you know, see the YAML file and know exactly what it is configuring. But then one would argue that, you know, if you have to write a complicated algorithm on top of that, then you're not really making it easy to reason about. So I'm convinced about this particular issue. We could close that if we can kind of. Maybe one solution to this would be just add an example of, you know, yeah, you're setting a start of the week on, say, Tuesday for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Here's how you would do it.
How to solve the problem? Yeah, I think we generally use more concrete examples of how to solve specific problems like that. Just in general in the spec.
Yeah, we have examples folder in the spec, I think. So this could be a good place for that.
Yes.
Maybe one interesting part would be to discuss if we want to keep the time zone as a separate field and not have it integrated in the ISO. But maybe it's controversial. For me, it feels better, again, because of the same reason I mentioned, because machines, I know it's really not, like, yeah, the debate is always like, do you make the YAML more readable or do you make the machine more happy? I'm not sure.
I think first of the reason of the YAMLs is to be that people are reading them, so they should be easy to read for the people. Like this is the intention for this type of files.
That's true. Okay, let's just keep it as is on the right.
So Alex, can I task you with, because you can close it yourself as well, can I task you with writing like a short summary of what we discussed today and closing it?
Yes, I will not close it. I will add the example that I have in mind to contribute, just to make sure that we are on the same page. If I get a hack, then I will make a PR and done.
Great.
Thanks
a lot. Yeah, we can move to another one of these. So would you prefer to talk about this one or the next one?
Maybe I can quickly talk about like why I'm so sensitive about using valid instead of total. So in the SRE books, they say that you know, the formula is good divided by valid, and it begs the question, what's valid? Why can't you just use total? And many observability platforms that I have investigated, I've investigated Datadog, Grafana, and Elastic. All of them call it total. So what's the deal with valid? Well, the answer is that this is a chance to scope, like what is the data that you want to include in your SLI. For example, let's say that you want to measure latency and be on call for that. So when the latency goes up, then it's basically something that you want to trigger the alert. Now, what happens when you're being DDoS? Right? Maybe you want to exclude all the requests that are not authenticated from your SLI. So you would say, I'm only interested to the latency of authenticated requests. And maybe you're performing well there, like no alert needs to be triggered. And that's something we can already do in the SLI formula. However, the wording is something that maybe it is too late because we have already these YAML specification, and maybe it requires too much refactoring. But that's what I wanted to highlight with this issue, because in the service level calculator, I'm consistently using valid, and I even have a dedicated chapter in my book about why we shouldn't call it total, because it creates this illusion that you are interested to all the events that are happening, the total events, whereas in reality, you want a subset of the events and focus on that. It's part of a bigger idea of you should never be responsible for what you don't control. That I can talk about it, but there is reasons that this wording is important. However, I'm not sure that this is really the right time to bring this up, because this is all over the place if you want to change the wording from total to valid.
Yeah, from my point of view, if I will just be the first one to stand opposed, I guess. I think the boat has sailed. The industry, I guess, except the SRE book, calls this total, and I think it's really an engineering term. It doesn't have to be a business term. I think all engineers understand that, like, yeah, like if you get DDoSed, like that's bad. Like it's not good data that you're getting. And yeah, then we could discuss like what does good and bad mean as well, because bad traffic is DDoS, right? I don't know. And then how will we call that? I think it's a really interesting point, but at the same time, I'm not sure if we can actually scope this in its wholeness and actually debate about it fully, while total just signifies that you have like the good is some part of the total part, which is really like beginner friendly. At least that's what it feels to me. My 2 cents.
I would actually agree with Alex. I feel like OpenSLO as an open specification can be in future something to reference when you're creating whatever you want to serve purpose of measuring SLOs or anything. And we actually should use the best standards and best wordings we can, even if like someone who will just approach the specification, he won't understand why we are calling it valid instead of total. We should use correct wording. And I like the reasoning, like eventually someone will understand why. And yeah, like the reasoning. So, and well, I would not change it in V1 because we have almost like a ready specification, but V2 Alpha 1, like I don't see the huge reason. I get it, like someone who's trying to implement something with V2 Alpha 1 right now might have some issues, but well, V2 Alpha 1 is work in progress, so we should like try to make the specification as best as it can be.
If I may add one more point to that, so it's really the synthetic argument here, like nothing will change. But like I said, I have a relatively large organization. One of the anti-patterns that I see in defining SLIs is not to take advantage of this denominator here. So the team sets SLI on something that's just too broad and it's beyond their control. Whereas the way that at least I'm implementing it in my company is to put the team accountable for what they control, what they see as valid events, valid requests that are coming, or valid time slot. And it's just about being clear on that. However, as I mentioned earlier, the industry standard seems to be total. These controls are not even given to you if you're using something like, say, Elastic. However, since this spec is coming from Noble 9, and I haven't tried Noble 9, but I'm thinking that probably this configuration exists in Noble 9. Maybe you allow the user to specify a subset of the events that they want to calculate for SLI. So this is more of a question to you, like how do you do it there? if you say that Noble 9 is the sponsor of this, the main sponsor of the OpenSLO?
The SLI, the user can define it however they please to, right? So out of all the data sources that we integrate with, we don't really place any hard restrictions on the SLIs other than the shape of the data series that has to be returned by the SLI. And yeah, we also operate on total, but I read your article and I must say I kind of liked the argument that you made there. But I also do agree with Robin that I fear the industry ship might have already sailed. And by introducing this other wording, I wonder if we would actually like bring more awareness or more confusion. And I don't really know. Like,
is there any a world in which we accept both?
Definitely not. Or maybe there is. The real world. But we are programmers, so we live in, abstractions. I don't know. We obviously don't need to, and probably won't make a decision on this meeting, but I think
I think the opinions are clearly understood, so maybe we should figure out some voting and I don't know, just get it over with. Because
I think we should go back to the issue and express our opinions there. That this is the best place for that.
Yes.
And then we can vote with emojis or something like that there, actually.
Like, sorry, go on.
I just wanted to say a little comment. I didn't read the article yet, but I understand the total word as a very local, in very local understanding. It's an abstract term, and valid is, in my opinion, it's some interpretation of that word. It's one of the possible subsets, maybe. And I understand the total as a abstract mathy term. I'm not sure whether we should try to put some interpretation on it or some basically some another meaning. What I would be more concerned about myself is the good term, which is not mathy, not very abstract. It gives some interpretation since the beginning. If I was to design this from the beginning, I would maybe call it just the numerator and the denominator. I think that would be the most abstract. But I think that the total term is fine in my opinion. But I didn't read the article yet.
Yeah, good and bad are basically just the opposites of each other, basically. So
if it's like that, then sure.
It has some space. I think it's good for the users because then they don't have to define always just good, for example, and they don't have to do some complex queries with their own, implementation. Yeah, it's syntactic sugar, I would say. Anyway, yeah, let's move it to the issues. I vote for that. Maybe we can figure some deeper discussion there and just actually decide.
One thing I would add here is that this does, in my opinion, highlight maybe an issue, a need that we can address in the specification. That once again, maybe we should try and document what total actually means, right? So these things you're touching upon, Alex. Even if you would stick with Total, I think it would do good to have some more guidelines and maybe examples on what Total should look like and maybe how it shouldn't look like, right? I think regardless of what we're gonna choose in the end, this is something that we would probably all would agree on, right? Or not?
No, it's a very good suggestion. Like in general, I think the documentation, because I've been using this documentation a lot. Like, I don't know if you're monitoring the stats on this GitHub repo, but I've been using it hundreds of times, and I refer to other people also to use this because I think that there's a good potential for infrastructure as code for teams who want to codify their SLI and SLO. I'm a big advocate of that. So it's very good that you're doing this work. However, the documentation, it needs some work maybe to make it a little bit more approachable. Which goes back to the suggestion that hopefully if there's time, I can bring that as well, about having like a sort of an editor or, have the site a little bit more approachable. But overall, I think this is a very good first step. Like there's YAMLs, they're very clear. The comments are great. Like if anyone who can program, they can find their way. But my comment is about making it a little bit more approachable, maybe to the wider community or people who are more used to UIs, so that they see the value in having a standard for this, because it actually makes them portable to different vendors. Maybe we will see some plugins that they take OpenSLO and they spit out, say, Grafana config for SLIs. Something like that.
Yeah.
So it pays to spend on documentation.
Great. So now we have the final issue of yours. You want to talk about it as well?
If I remember correctly, is that we are not very explicit about what a month means for rolling. If I remember correctly, it was a while ago. A lot has happened. Yeah, I think so. So for rolling SLO windows, if I say 1M, 1 month, then what is 1 month? I guess we assume that it is 30, but it's not always 30. So this was about not allowing 1M for rolling. Yeah, you have that in the examples also. Like it says 5 months. So 5 months is even more, right? Is it exactly 5 multiplied by 30 days? Or is it something else? Am I making sense?
Yes, perfect sense. I just wanted to, I wasn't here. Okay, this is defined here actually, yeah. So this probably just follows like extends obviously because this is not supported by Go duration. But Philip, yeah, you can probably share the most details here on this.
I was going to say that I get the point that you're making in here, but well, I think OpenSLO is actually the specification. We don't have anything that actually is interpreting these days or months, and probably it should be up to the vendor how they do it. Like they should do it right. But well, I'm not.
So I consider myself a vendor. Like how would I go and implement it?
Yeah. From our point of view, we also are a vendor of some kind, and our solution was we will not deal with months. or years, for that matter. So yeah, but we have a limited use case. So
yeah, I mean, this is the reason why we did not solve the issue ever, and probably you're right.
We should solve it though.
Yeah, probably you're right. We could just say specifically what do we mean by that, so that people have clear guidelines.
My suggestion is not to allow months at all for rolling windows.
Yes.
Because it's confusing. You can always say 30 days. Like there is a better alternative that is more specific. And all three issues that I discussed today is because I started codifying it. So I see myself as the vendor, so to speak, because I'm not really changing the standard. I just want to see how does it work with my application, which is about defining your SLI and SLO. And then hopefully I can spit out OpenSLO, and then you take it, put it to your plugin and do whatever you want with it, basically. And then maybe you can load it into the application and edit it in graphical way. But that is where I hit these obstacles when you start implementing the standard. But I don't know, it might be that we say, okay, the standard can be a little bit open and these details are left to the vendor, but I'm more in favor of being specific and not allowing certain things that we know that is going to cause confusion, and different vendors implement it differently.
Yeah, not only confusion,
at least
but
for this case.
Yeah, I agree that it's not only about confusion, just confusion. It's really about the promise of the spec, right? That you can define this specification and expect it to work across multiple vendors in a at least similar fashion, right? And here, if we don't at least say what the month means, and one implements it as 30, other as 31, or maybe 29 days, then it's really kind of breaks it, right? And I don't see a reason why we shouldn't be specific here. I would also opt for just removing the month support at all. As you said, it can be defined with days.
And year and quarters.
Yeah, exactly. Just divide. Fraction.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, years too, right? Because it can be, how do you say that in English?
Leap year.
Yeah.
Leap year,
yeah. So we would limit it to weeks, right? That would be the proposal.
I mean, I was wondering because, like, I know I will be like going too much into like niche cases, but let's say, consider the service that have like 4, 5, 6 nines, and like days are not exactly 24 hours, so our SLOs also can break at some point, like, right? If they will work for long enough.
Yeah, but I would say if you have 6 nines, then you're not defining your SLOs in days. No? You're probably looking at shorter time windows anyway. It's a stupid argument, but I'm making it anyway. For the sake of it.
Yeah, I'm saying, like, yeah, you're right. Like, let's keep it to the like fixed numbers, which up to the weeks they are fixed, but we can go to the problem with this also, with these values also, when someone will design like some really high reliability reliable system.
I would argue that if the spec is clear, we don't need to think about protecting users from misconfiguration. If someone has 5 nines and they decide that their SLO window is 1 day, it's something that they quickly find out that they probably doesn't fit their setup, or maybe it does fit their setup. Maybe they have automatic error detection and error recovery, and this is tied to something. It's not really bothering the alerting fatigue or anything. So maybe that is something that makes sense. In the standard, if you block that ability, I think it's a little bit too much. But in the standard, if we say that you can set a rolling window to a month, then what is a month? There's part of the world that has lunar calendar, for example. So it might create confusion for rolling. It's just about that specific configuration. For other cases, it's not a blocker. Like the specification that you have on the right side of the screen, it is clear enough for calendar bound. Like if I say I'm only interested in events in the current quarter, it's kind of easy to calculate based on the locale.
That makes sense. I'm good with removing those. Like, it is kind of breaking change actually, though.
But we are not proposing it for V1, right? We are
Okay. If
moving
so,
that to
that's
the
fine.
next version. So, Alex, would you be open to opening a pull request to change the enhancements for V2 Alpha 1 to specify that?
It will probably take longer for me because, like I said, like large organization, I'm also writing a book and also rewriting the entire
So
SLC.
that's why I'm asking.
And I'm not good in Go, so it will take more time for me. But so you're suggesting that I just make some, propose some changes to the documentation, basically, not changing the Go reference.
Yeah, exactly. And
Okay.
code,
Yeah,
we can delegate the code change to someone else. So
Yeah, I can
Sounds
do it. I can do it. I can do both.
okay,
I
so
appreciate it, Robin.
yeah, perfect, great.
I can focus on one action item that I already have.
This is something I wanted to talk about. Okay, I see there are actually some, maybe before we go to that, this is something that Aaron proposed. Yeah, let's maybe talk about this one first.
Yeah, so essentially, we allow multiple objectives for, I think it's ratio metrics. So we allow you to say the target is 99%. Maybe that's for an SLO, and then you could be an SLA that's 4 nines. But we don't allow that for threshold metrics, which seems a bit confusing to me. Because in theory, you should be able to say, for example, here, lag is less than 5 minutes for 90%, 95% of the time, because we're on like a time slice. But it's like 10 minutes lag for 99% of the time. And so the idea here is just that we remove the limitation either for V1 or V2. I don't have a strong preference of just allowing multiple objectives.
I can not with high confidence share a possible reason why was it done this way initially. As Alex already pointed out, the project was initially founded from the initiative of Noble 9, and for technical reasons, we had that restriction in our spec, and I think it just stayed like that. I'm not sure there was a real underlying reason for that restriction in the first place.
I'll be honest. I truly think that it should have been flipped around. Like, we allow multiple objectives for ratio, but not for threshold. And I think it should have been the other way around originally, maybe, because I don't really see a perfect reason to have 2 objectives on a ratio metric. And that, I mean, what was described in the Slack channel was like an SLO versus like an SLA that might be more public facing. You might want to have two alerts on that, which is fine, I guess. But I think it really makes a lot of sense if you say you can have multiple objectives on a threshold metric, which is generally time based.
Yeah, and here is another discussion that I'm kind of resisting against changing the V1 version, changing the restrictions in V1 version.
I have no strong preference. As long as it's approved, I'm going to get to merge it into my existing project. So.
Well,
Go ahead, Robin.
I'm not sure if I have actually something to say. I was thinking if it's not a if the case is different now for this one to actually merge it to V1 directly, because before it was clear there's an issue, right? If you have an implementation that only that deals with alert conditions, and you suddenly have 4 of them instead of 1, you are in trouble because you don't know what to do with them, because it's just not explicit. With this one, the issue is kind of similar probably, but still any implementation is probably taking the first of the list. The only confusion would be, yeah, never mind. V2 alpha is better still, because yeah, it's kind of breaking.
So where I think it's not so breaking is the fact that we allow multiple objectives, but for ratio already. So it's not like the concept of multiple objectives just doesn't exist. It's just more of it's a note on the actual spec saying like, hey, you shouldn't have multiple objectives on threshold. But again, I'm indifferent to whatever.
Yeah, I get that point. I'm just thinking, yeah, if the user specifies it and specifies multiple and the implementation is like, it's valid OpenSLO, right? But at the same time, the implementation doesn't have any idea how to deal with that. So I don't know.
I do realize that with the current adoption of the package, which is not large. I mean, we're only now creating the Go SDK, right? But this is maybe more of an academic discussion here. But I feel like we should be already now functioning in a way that we have those implementations, right? So that in the future we would, be used to the versioning lifecycle. Maybe we can also make the versioning lifecycle a bit shorter, because right now V2 Alpha has been hanging for what, a year, maybe plus, right? So maybe if we make the life cycle of the next version shorter, then we can ship those new features quicker in the official versions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, sorry, I have more general question, because Mateusz, you work for Noble 9, and I think this standard came from Noble 9, but Noble 9, to my understanding, has moved on from the OpenSLO. Like if you go to the site for documentation, you see different configs, right?
Yes.
So I think that kind of contributes to this being in V1 Alpha for so long, because this is not really solving a problem that you already have in a on a job on a daily basis, but it's rather this openness standards is like extra work. And either you need a bigger community, a lot of people who are actively contributing to that, so then if the life cycle will be a little bit more agile, or it can be that maybe this OpenSLO needs to map closer to what Noble 9 has internally, not internally, but for the config, so that it's at least solving one company's problem, one vendor's problem. I'm just writing my own hobby project, and I'm using OpenSLO. So for me, whatever comes out of this is like, okay, so I use it as an inspiration. But if you're a business and you are relying on this config, maybe it is more justified to spend resources on evolving this standard into something, because you are using it internally. Am I making sense? I tend to ramble a little bit.
Definitely.
The question is, are you using it internally?
Is someone using it internally? Like I think Pyra was doing that, right? But again, since we didn't have any SDK or even JSON schema for that, even if someone had a project that was referencing or using the OpenSLO schema as a reference, they were implementing it on their own, right? So, and oftentimes I think with some changes, right? I think Pyra they did some changes too, like minor changes, something that they didn't like.
Yeah, for sure.
But definitely, we are lacking in like business traction here. So it's nice that we now have the all-score right. We have things that Aaron is doing, your project, Alex. So these are nice additions to the previous kind of barren landscape of well-known OpenSLO implementations, and it's definitely helping us to, I think, push it in the right direction. Because without the usage, it's just kind of academic, right? In that sense of this word.
Maybe I can reformulate that question. So one of the best open source collaborations I've seen is this JavaScript programming language, really. It's very quirky, but now it seems like the big browser vendors have agreed on one spec and they follow it. Chrome, you have Safari, Microsoft Edge. Like, there is no way that you would see all these big tech giants, their interests to be aligned, but they have learned that, okay, if we support one specification, it's actually we win. So there's a business use case for those kind of specifications. But in this one, from what I understand, it started in Noble 9, but Noble 9 realized that there are some limitations with this standard, so they want to kind of push the open community to accept Noble 9's configuration format. So you kind of diverged and went your own way. Whereas the open source version of it doesn't get so much traction. So how about V2 being the exact Noble 9 configuration? And since you have the resources to spend on having an open standard, that will be the standard that you push in the open.
I think the primary problem with that would be that the Noble 9 spec currently has shifted way more than the OpenSLO spec, and there are features there baked into the specification that we cannot expect possible implementations to implement, right? And I fear that it is too complicated, and it would actually deter possible implementations. Maybe it's too complex.
JavaScript also have these optional bits. Like there is the core that all the browser vendors have to implement, but then there is this optional things that many browser vendors, like Node.js, for example, some of the stuff that exists in the standard optional ones, it doesn't implement. Then Node.js is another example. So it is possible to have a core and then the parts that are optional. But I haven't looked into details and diff the Noble 9 configuration with this one. I'm just thinking, like, if it is not really solving the problem of any of the big observability vendors and no one is really sponsoring it, then it doesn't get the resources, to have a faster life cycle. So someone like me who kind of thinks that, okay, this is the open standard. If I use this, then it will be interoperable with a bunch of other tools in the ecosystem. Well, you look into this and you see there's probably not that much of an ecosystem. So I may as well go and, invent my own YAML files and use that instead. But it will be yet another kind of a standard that only works in my little application.
Yeah.
Well, I would say that right now we are at least 6 on a community meeting here, sitting here, which I think is already some community, and the OpenSLO is already different from the Noble 9, right? I would say at this point, OpenSLO is more of the standard, and now, like, the actual interesting question here is the versioning. Like, if we can get it up to speed, because I would say, as we are sitting here, for most of us, the V1 is probably unusable. Or it just has some issues in it that, like, in one way or the other, we cannot get around. Either it's a Kubernetes implementation and interoperability, or if it's in time setting, or it's with multiple objectives. So yeah, as far as this goes, I would move it to V2 and then make V2 alpha and make sure we get that out of the door relatively soon, so people can move on at least to that, and then we can see if there are actually more things that are problematic.
So does Noble 9 have an importer that can read the OpenSLO and then convert it to Noble 9 configuration? Do you guys use this?
We used to have that, and we even have customers that have expressed a will to or a wish to maybe define their specs in the OpenSLO format. But there is the OSLO tool, but it wasn't maintained really, and I have that on my work roadmap to write such a converter, and it is something that we want and that we want to kind of advertise as well, that we are OpenSLO compatible through that converter. But there isn't anything like that at the moment. There used to be the OSLO, wasn't maintained, isn't maintained for like 2-3 years. But with the Go SDK that we're currently writing in the OpenSLO, once that's finished, it will be very easy for me to write such a converter. And it is something that we want as Noble 9.
And you think that feature-wise, it is possible to convert this config to Noble 9, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
From Noble 9 to OpenSLO, that's more tricky, right? Because the OpenSLO is essentially a subset of the Noble 9 features. But there isn't anything breaking here. Basically, all that the OpenSLO supports, we support as well. So.
But that's good to know, because many observability tools don't have a very good solution for infrastructure as code for SLI, SLO alerting. In general, that is compatible with this standard. So if Noble 9 is one user of this standard, that's good. Because then someone who wants to be vendor agnostic, they can specify their SLO in the OpenSLO format, with the potential that they can switch observability provider or SLO solution to Noble 9, for example, in the future.
Yeah.
Yes.
So just coming back to the issue that we open up here, Aaron, if you could create a pull request for
this is a pull request.
Oh, this is a pull request, yeah. Dummy me, yeah.
And it only affects the V2 as well. I just added a note essentially.
Yeah, that's good enough, I think.
Nice.
Yeah, we can already just squash it and merge it.
Yeah, so my next one is essentially like without the spec, we have references to other things. So we have SLI ref, data source ref, but the service name is just called service when we do actually have a service object within the OpenSLO spec. So essentially it's just a name change to service ref instead of service. And again, this is only on V2 alpha.
So as I said, I think I agree with that. We should strive to be what's the word? Consistent, yeah. I knew it was on starting on C. I think we should try to be consistent and having like 2 different conventions for naming these references I don't think it's helpful.
think it makes it clear as well that this should point to another object.
Yeah.
Currently, it's a bit ambiguous. You just put free text in there. And then hopefully validators will actually understand that this should point to another object.
So what do the other participants think about that? I don't see the hand, so just
Question.
go on.
Yeah, I have a question. So it sounds like some, either it's a kind of documentation bug or whatever you call it. It's like, why did we diverge from the convention that already exists for, using ref in other, like, I'm thinking, is there a reason behind it, or is it just a bug?
I know the reason for service, and that reason,
Yeah.
like, why was it called like that? And from the very beginning, we both had the metric source ref, and we had the service. And service, I know for a fact, was named like that because that's how it was named in the Noble 9 spec. And there wasn't any deeper reason behind that.
And what Aaron says makes perfect sense to me. I actually didn't know about this quirk, so I have implemented service ref actually.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, already. It makes sense.
Great. So if no one is against that, I think you have some conflicts to solve there, but other than that, this can be already approved. Let's just wait with that for a moment, because I really want to touch on two more topics. And the first one is why did I? Yeah, maybe just in the comment. So while working on the SDK, I started to wonder how do we wish to model the versioning process, the life cycle of the OpenSLO versions. Do we, what pattern of naming do we want to follow, and what rules would we want to establish? So when does a version mature from the V2 alpha or beta or whatever, right, into the official V2 version? Also, do we need to be so granular as to have V2 alpha 1, 2, 3, and so on, where we clearly just stick to updating the V2 alpha 1, right? And we don't really create another, like, let's call it patch version or minor version of alpha, right? With each update. So to me, I don't think we really need this sort of granular approach to have this like minor version. Also, do we need beta versions? Maybe we just need like a V2 RC version or something, and that's it. What do you think about that?
I'm not sure who would consume the beta versions. I certainly know I wouldn't with OSCO, because it's just too unstable anyway. I don't know. I don't have an opinion. And the V2 alpha 1 granularity, I don't know. It feels really natural to me, but I work a lot with Kubernetes and I see this all the time. So I don't really have an actual opinion, I would say.
Just I'd add another thing about the SDK and the release process for Go libraries. So I don't see a point even in having something like V2 alpha if you're not going to be releasing it, right? So if it's gonna be only available like in the development, then I don't really see a point of having it, because as you said, who's gonna be the user of it, right? In the Kubernetes ecosystem, if you have alpha or beta versions, sometimes you're just using them, right? You're not always using the official versions. But if these next major version candidates are gonna be just, for us to play around until we release the official version, then maybe there's just no point in having them at all, right? Maybe we can just work on V2, not release it until we are confident that this is the shape that we are currently agreeing on. And yeah, just have it like that. Or
yeah. On the other hand, there's a world in which OpenSLO as a repository is a source of, for example, the CRDs themselves for Kubernetes. At that point, it would be really helpful for if we were to consume those as a Kubernetes operator and users of OpenSLO spec. It would be really useful to have the alphas tagged in some way, so that those CRDs actually get generated. We are able to like use them, pull them, and test against them. Because like right now, we don't hit this problem because we are still kind of
right
using our own definitions. But if we just imported OpenSLO and downloaded whatever CRDs you have generated for each version, then there is a big difference at that point in the usability for even for development purposes.
That's a good point. But if we would go about it like that, I think what we would probably do is we would just have the V2 alpha folder, like package, right? And then we would just create tags ever so often with the like minor version suffix, and this way it would be the alpha candidate, right, would be released and available for the Kubernetes to pull, right?
Sure, unless, yeah, I suppose, yeah, that's fine.
Because if we stick to this V2 alpha 1, right, then we have to, with how do we version that? Do we just keep creating like these new versions here? Or maybe we just have V2 alpha, we work on it, and with some, periodically, we're releasing it under the incrementing minor version, V2 alpha 1, V2 alpha 2, and so on.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that sounds good. And then I wouldn't really have beta because I don't think it's necessary. And if it becomes necessary, someone can just come and discuss it again, right?
Yeah. Anyone else has some thoughts on that?
I just wanted to say that I agree. I agree with the approach where you have a V2 directory and you just release tags.
Okay. So that's good. And here is the problem that we encountered while creating validation rules for our Go SDK. And to be specific, there's this one instance in the specification where we are using this must may semantic, right? So we are saying that something can be, but not necessarily have to be supported, right? And for the SDK, it creates the problem that's, well, how should we model it then? Should we have like functions that take in an additional argument for the validation, right? Which would be either maybe like a strict mode or non-strict mode. Or maybe we just don't really do things like that, and we just keep the specification simple and concrete. And that's Philip's proposal here. Right, Philip, you want to add something? That
I think Philip left.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, Alex too.
Okay.
I'm not a Kubernetes expert, but I do think this would break Kubernetes in some way, because I'm pretty sure they mandate, or they sort of make each name sort of part of a host. So I know they have the 63 characters limit on names, I think.
Yes, that's true.
And then because of that, I think they mandate it has to be under 255 because of it makes a host name.
Yep. But that's something that I'm willing to take a shortcut and add it directly, add the change directly to the V1 spec. Because even in the SDK, if we make it for the V1 version, if we have this in our docs, then we kind of have to support it then, right? Even though we don't really want to. So yeah, there's my hypocrisy here.
In that case, you may want to change the way, instead of removing this comment of like implementing the additional, because I think the RFC 1123, could be wrong, contains saying it needs to be sort of a host name. You might need to say excluding this validation rule.
You mean?
I mean,
I'm not sure I understand.
Let me just double check this RFC, because what I'm suggesting is that this RFC might already say that it needs to be an internet host name, which is under 255. So you're saying it must be part of these requirements, but then you're also dropping that requirement underneath.
Yeah, like this suggestion, right? Because this is not really a requirement. It is more of a suggestion for the implementation that it may contain these names for up to 255 characters in length and contain those characters.
Because the way I read the bullet points under this is sort of summarizing that RFC.
No. Sorry. I don't think that's the.
But that RFC does suggest that it should be under 255. It's not a must; it's a should.
So the RFC is like that's the bullet point here, and
I see.
That's another one.
Okay, but that RFC 1123 does say it should be under 255.
I think it depends on what you refer, because this is another problem with this comment. It refers the RFC, but the RFC refers different things, right? I think there's a DNS label reference there, and the DNS label is what we are actually, DNS label. Oh, here it is, right?
Okay.
The DNS label. Because the whole RFC, it's not only about DNS labels, right? It is general for hosts, right? Host names and whatnot. And we're being inconcrete here, because
Okay.
it should say that it should follow the DNS label as described by RFC 1123. So actually, will add to this PR to make it more concrete. Yeah, that's a good point. But are we okay with doing that? Do you have some thoughts on that?
I'm still in the belief that it would make adding things to Kubernetes more complex, but
Well,
I mean, Robin's more experienced too.
yeah. I think I wouldn't honestly. I was kind of zoning out now because it's kind of late. But in general, the Kubernetes, the specification as it is now is completely not functional in the Kubernetes world. Anyway, so if we are to fix that in V2 Alpha, I'm gonna work on that for sure in the Kubernetes implement. I'm not sure how it's called, the issue or pull request. I'm gonna fix that for sure. Now the question is this gonna break Kubernetes actually? If not, then I don't care.
Is it just more of a one step back for V1, and then we're just going to re-add this for V2?
Yeah,
no. We're deleting this one entirely. So it's out of V1 and it's going to be out of V2 as well, right?
What I'm suggesting is that if we go through the compliance of Kubernetes in the future for V2, because V1 we know it's not compliant, we possibly may need to re-add this anyway for V2 to make it Kubernetes compliant.
Re-add this, but Kubernetes doesn't support that.
My understanding is, I could be wrong.
This is what Kubernetes supports.
Okay, I will double check some of this because I have a feeling I've got stuck with 255 characters in the past.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure this is the.
I could be wrong, so I can follow up. But it's just a comment of it might be that we have to re-add it in the future for Kubernetes compliance.
Because even if we look, this is the Kubernetes docs, right? We're referring here.
So the one above it, where did I just see?
Some resource type required
contains no more than 253 characters on your scrolling.
Oh, sorry, that's the one.
The one just above it, it's DNS subnames. Yeah. Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's most of the object names in Kubernetes, metadata names.
I sent a thing into the chat here, which is the API reference for the whole metadata thing that Kubernetes actually expects.
Oh, you sent. Sorry, I heard that you want me to send.
I hope it's gonna scroll to whatever I sent.
Object meta.
Oh, it didn't scroll.
Name. No, it didn't scroll. It just stuck on the.
If you find object meta, then you will be able to, if you search for it and then click.
Yeah, that's the name.
In the specific. Not this one necessarily. Just search in the API reference. Just search for object meta.
This is object meta, and I'm looking at the name.
Oh, you're looking at the name. Oh yeah. Interesting. Okay, so they will have some validation different somewhere else. I'm just saying that we are now saying the general schema is this. From my point of view, it would be easiest to just actually say metadata equals object meta of Kubernetes, and because in general that will have to be done anyway, but that's a larger scope than what we're dealing with now. Again, I would actually ask if anyone is dealing with this issue or if it's just semantic at this point with the V1.
I am dealing with this issue.
You are?
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point of this issue that Philip started here is that this is the only instance in the whole OpenSLO spec that we are having this kind of suggestion, right? So the whole spec is very strict. It says, okay, this field should be of this and this shape, right? Of this and this type. It has this and this restrictions. But here, with the name, we are making an exception, and we are basically giving
right.
guidelines, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this is what you must support, and you may support that, but don't have to.
Yeah, yeah. I would remove that.
And in my opinion, we shouldn't be doing that. Like, this creates a whole box of problems, including the current Go SDK implementation, because then I need to basically support two versions, right, of the validation. One would be like a strict mode, other would be more lax, and maybe permit those suggestions. And I don't really want to do that.
Computers don't understand encouraged, and users don't either, honestly. So yeah, let's just remove it and deal with the Kubernetes compliance later on if there are issues with that.
Okay.
Which I don't think there are, because the above the metadata name looks kind of good to me.
So this is something to check, but we think that this is what is the standard, and this would actually not work with Kubernetes, right?
Yeah, this wouldn't. Yeah.
Maybe the length, I'm not sure, but I don't think you can have those characters in your metadata name, like for sure not.
For sure not. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else? If there's time, discuss a graphical editor for OpenSLO YAML files. I think this was Alex's, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So there wasn't time.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll finish the recording now. Thanks, everyone, including those who left earlier, for attending. I think it was quite a fruitful meeting. We managed to solve some of these issues that were brought up, and yeah, we've got work to do. One last thing I'd like to add, once again, if you would like to contribute to the SDK project and you have some Go experience, or maybe none at all, and you just want to learn some Go, then help is greatly appreciated. And you can just reach out to me to get a task. Okay. So finishing the recording.